So an emergency fund will not make you rich by itself, but it will keep you safe, to keep you from bad decisions. So how do you know how much you should keep aside as an emergency fund so you don't keep too much or too little? For most of us, especially in this economy, it's definitely going to be more than 3 months. Hello everyone, my name is Modupe and today we'll be discussing emergency funds. So we've done some important groundwork. We set an intentional spending plan to begin to fuel your growth engine. Today, we're going to start with the foundation of what will protect that growth engine and make sure it doesn't collapse at any point. Life happens. A budget alone will not protect you from a job loss. A budget will not necessarily protect you from an emergency or an accident, or if you have to travel unexpectedly, or if you are hit with a large expense or repairs or something that goes beyond your monthly life bucket. So the logical question is, what happens when life happens? How do you maintain your budget when life happens? This is where emergency funds come in. They're basically what makes every other part of your financial plan less fragile, because they act as a safety net to make sure you're not forced to make bad decisions in an emergency. So the emergency funds sit there so that you don't go and liquidate all your pensions, for instance, or do something really drastic because you need money in a hurry. That's why sometimes you see people end up selling shares during a recession, which is the exact opposite of what you should do. But if you need cash, what can you do? Or you find people taking on loans with prohibitive interest rates. I know someone that went through this and it wasn't a pleasant experience. But usually you would think, why would someone take a loan from that kind of institution? Because they needed the money. So an emergency fund will not make you rich by itself, but it will keep you safe, to keep you from all those bad decisions. Quick reminder before we go ahead. This content is for education only. It's based off my personal experience and learning. It's not financial advice and it shouldn't be taken as such. If you do need financial advice, please consult a licensed professional. So how do you know how much you should keep aside as an emergency fund so you don't keep too much or too little? There's a two-step process you can use to calculate your emergency funds. The first thing you do is look at your budget today, your monthly spend. Now, look at the life bucket of your monthly spend, not the full thing, the expenses. The part that you cannot cut, because in an emergency you can cut fun, you can cut growth, you can even eliminate giving in some cases. But the life bit of it, you must pay your rent unless you want to live on the streets. You must pay your energy bills unless you want to freeze in UK winter. So look at that bit of it. Even within that bit, you might still be able to find things that are not essential. So if you look at your budget, look at the bits that you cannot but pay for. In some cases, there's a part of your giving budget too that you might not be able to avoid if you're taking care of someone back home. You don't have a choice. If you have a dependent that 100% relies on you, then it's no longer optional. I would move that from the giving bucket into the life bucket. Now, once you have that amount that you need to spend every month, no matter the circumstances, even in an emergency, take that figure and ask yourself, if you lost your current source of income, how many months would it take you to be able to replace it? How many months do you think it will take you to find another job that will pay you the exact same amount of money or more? Now, take that figure from the first step and multiply it by those number of months. Whatever number you get is your emergency fund. A general rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months. But you need to look at what would apply in your own scenario. I was talking to a friend recently who talked about a colleague that left their company and didn't get a job for like 12 months. Now, I'm not saying you should do 12 months emergency fund, but you need to consider that it needs to be a time period that you're comfortable living off that money while you try to set up an alternative source of monthly income. For most of us, especially in this economy, it's definitely going to be more than 3 months. So that's the number. Once you take your monthly essential spend and multiply that by the number of months that you feel you would need to be able to replace your income, the number you get to, that's your emergency fund target. Now, I know we looked at net worth a couple of days ago. If you looked at all your savings and everything and it's not close to this number, you're not alone. That's a common scenario, right? You build up your emergency funds over time. Or at least now you know how much you need to have secure for you to be secure. But then the question is, what do you already have in terms of savings? If you look at your net worth and the bit of it that is short term that you can access easily, savings, money market funds, mutual funds, how much do you have there already across the UK or in Nigeria? Then you know from there, this is the amount that is left that I need to build. The other question to ask is, where do you keep this money? But for now, is that money readily accessible to you? Because if it's something that is for an emergency, you need to know where it is. A lot of people open up savings accounts here and there. Maybe they saw one interest rate or they tried to get one deal with one bank, but then they had the money scattered all over the place. Your net worth calculation should have helped you to pull all that together. This is the moment where you need to know exactly what you have where, because that gives you the base. You now know, okay, this is how much I have in terms of savings that I can access readily if I need it. This is how much more that I need to save to be able to meet the emergency fund target. Now, some people choose to leave some of the emergency funds back home for whatever reason. In some cases, it's because you're getting better interest rates over there. In cases, it's because you want to make it easy to transfer the money. For instance, people that still have local expenses back home. Maybe there's something you're paying for. It could be an investment. It could be you're taking care of someone. There's a dependent back home. Whatever the reason is, if you still have savings back home, it's totally fine. But you need to consider the potential trade-offs. Exchange rate volatility is usually a big one, because you could have those savings there and be gaining a lot of interest rates. So I think interest rate last I checked was roughly around 15% in Nigeria, which is high compared to the 4% you get in the UK. But then there's also the exchange rate volatility. If for whatever reason you need to convert that money back into pounds, then it might have lost value. But if you're going to spend it in naira, that may not be the concern. The other thing you need to look out for is inflation, because inflation over there is a lot higher. So when you're getting those high interest rates, you also need to make sure that they are covering the inflation rates over there, especially if you plan to spend it over there. And then there's also, how do you manage it remotely? How easy is it to access the account? How reliable is that institution? Those are some of the considerations that you should keep in mind. But the good thing is, once you have this target of what you are aiming for in terms of an emergency fund, it gives you some clarity on why you should have savings as part of your growth bucket in addition to investing. Because someone like me, I've always liked to focus my energies on investing purely. And it's tempting to neglect the saving bit, but this is really what your savings are for primarily. Now, ideally, you should revisit these targets maybe once a year, because your expenses might have changed, your income might have changed, and that might have affected your lifestyle. Considering the fact that life does happen, sometimes you have a huge emergency that you need to take out of that money for. That's what it's for. But you just need to keep in mind that you need to replenish it. So let's say you built up the emergency fund to meet the target, you had to take out of it, then you continue to put money back to build up the emergency fund again. So what I do every month, within that growth bucket, I split it between my savings and my investment. I put a little bit of money on emergency funds, I put a little bit of money in the investments. So that way I can continue to benefit from the growth in the stock market while also making sure I build up my defense against an unexpected scenario. But this is up to you. The important thing is to make sure that you build it up. Whether you focus on it first, focus for the next 6 months, build my emergency fund, or you want to try and build both alongside each other. Either way is fine. The important thing, allocate enough to your growth engine, because it's very important. So today we've calculated your monthly expense. We know exactly how much you need each month if you were to lose your job. You've decided if you would need 3 months, 5 months, 6 months or longer to be able to recuperate if you did lose your job. We've set a target for how much you need to build up in terms of your emergency fund. We've also looked at the pros and cons of leaving some money in Nigeria versus having everything in the UK. The one thing we haven't talked about is where do you keep your emergency funds once you've put it together or as you are building it? We'll answer that question. If you have any question, leave it in the comments below. And also let me know, how many months did you use to calculate your emergency funds? Was 3 months okay for you, or are you going for something higher? See you then.